Welcome again, everyone. Good evening. It's so good to have you here. Victoria and I were super excited to share this topic with you, which is all about supporting your little toddlers' milestones with Montessori techniques and the power of essential oils. Just a little bit about me. I am, most of you know me here, but I'm still just going to do a quick introduction. My name is Desiree, and I've been using essential oils for over 6 years now. And I have kind of switched and ditched my entire household and have been leading a fairly mostly toxic-free lifestyle for about 4 years. I have gotten so interested in this topic of essential oils and toxins and what it can do for you, and that I also got certified as a metaphysical and clinical aromatherapist. And because of the growing community, I've also then created Oily Essentials, which is the platform that most of you are familiar with. And I'm also the co-founder of Mamaji Essentials together with Eva, who is here today. And we have also a podcast which talks to all moms out there and how we can navigate this crazy thing called motherhood, crazy but beautiful thing called motherhood. And I am currently living in Kyoto, Japan.
That's me. Thanks, Des. So I founded The Bright Life. I started The Bright Life about 4.5 years ago, right about the time when I had my first son. And the whole idea with The Bright Life is that my training as a Montessori teacher provided me with, I think, the most useful tools, to navigate parenthood, to navigate being a mom. And I felt like all parents should feel this way. All parents should feel like they have the power to decide how they want to how they want to work with their families, what kind of parent they want to be, the kind of environment they want to provide their child. And so hopefully by providing you with kind of like a blueprint of what Montessori is like, and now also positive discipline, because I just completed my training in that, we'll be able to help more parents around the world. So I also have a graduate diploma in positive psychology, which we weave into some of the Montessori lessons as well. And the idea is that with positive psychology, it's really about supporting the parent as well to kind of feel very resilient, to feel more empowered, especially in this crazy time called COVID. I have 2 little boys. One is 1.5. The other one is 4.5. And they can drive me up the wall, but with some very helpful tips from Desiree as well with the essential oils, it has been very helpful. And that's also one of the reasons why we thought of putting the course together. Why we decided to combine forces and come up with this talk, come up with this webinar, and come up with a parents course as well. Then the whole idea is that if we're providing parents with all the tools they need to feel confident, then we'll be less subject to other people's nagging and other people's opinion, and more empowered to make our own decisions that's right for our family. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. So who here, and please write in the chat box as well, who here sometimes has these moments when you just feel completely overwhelmed as a new parent? Like you think that, oh my gosh, I feel like I've got prepared. I got all the books. I did all the kind of courses or workshops, and I thought I had a manual, but then your child arrives and it's kind of all out the window, and you're like, yeah, okay, maybe not. And because every child is completely different, right? And yeah, Eva is raising her hand there. And are you often taken by surprise as well, that every day you think, okay, you've got it all under control, and then something happens and you're like, why is this happening to us? And also feeling, that's how personally I felt. I was like, I feel like I'm always a step behind, right? I feel like I'm prepared. I know what I'm doing, but then I have my routine down, but then everything changes. And all of a sudden like he's not my little one, he just turned 4, like he wasn't following that routine anymore. So I always kind of felt a little step behind, and I was tired of that, and I was like, I want to feel a bit more prepared, which is why I was so happy. So I lived in Singapore previously, and I have so I just moved from Singapore 2 years ago then to Japan. But when I met Victoria, I was so grateful because we got talking, and I was like, wow, she's an expert in all things Montessori and how to also set that up at home. And I was sharing with her about essential oils, and these two things have been so complementary for each other, right? Each of us adapting some of our tips as well from each other. And that's when it hit us, and we were like, oh my God, we want to help more moms kind of navigate these difficult moments in early motherhood. And so that is why we created this course, as Victoria already mentioned. And it is a course that is, it's called the Essential Parents course, where we take you through, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in the end. But we already want to show you some tools, some things that have been so game changing for us, especially with little ones, let's say from like 0 to about 3 years old. It's just super useful. And again, we'll speak a little bit more in detail on that at the end. And also stay tuned, because we have a special code for you to use just for our community, because we really want to help, because it's been so life-changing for us that we really want to pass this on to others as well. So over to you.
Thank you. So before I jump into these things called the sensitive periods, I wanted to give a brief overview of Montessori. So I think, I'm not sure how many of you are here for the Montessori bit and how many of you here are familiar with Montessori. So just bear with me while I give a bit of an introduction. So Montessori was created by a lady named Maria Montessori over 100 years ago. And when she started her work, she was actually a doctor. So she wasn't really intending to go into education. But it was because of her work with young children that she ended up realizing that that children whom people had deemed incapable of learning, and in the words of 100 years ago, idiot children, were actually children that just needed a little bit more support that the current education system was not able to provide them with. So after a lot of her work gained recognition by the Roman government, they actually invited her to run her own school, where she tested out more of her techniques with more children, and became the base for what we now know widely today as Montessori education. So really, Montessori is, if I had to classify it in a nutshell, it's really child-led. And a lot of education systems says, yes, we're child-led, but what child-led means in the Montessori sense is that it takes into consideration that the child has a role to play, and it sets up this role that the child is meant to play, and then the role that the parent is meant to play in the environment. And I really like that, because sometimes we struggle with, I don't want to be a dictator, but then I don't want to be permissive, and then what's that in between? And so, using Montessori really also helped me find my role in my child's life. And I found that very liberating, because I no longer questioned myself as much as, oh, did I do that right? Should I be doing this? Am I cramping his style? And now I'm always guided by certain principles. So in a nutshell, that's how I've approached Montessori in our home, and how I've helped parents approach Montessori in their homes. And today I wanted to share more about sensitive periods, because it's one of the key teachings from Montessori, because it helps you understand the milestones that your children will go through. But these are internal milestones that we don't generally talk about. We talk about things like when they crawl, when they walk, like everybody knows, right? Tummy time when they're born, so it'll help them start to crawl, and then they flip and then sit up. And we have that manual. But then after that, then what? What happens on the inside? So these sensitive periods are almost like a blueprint that every single child under 6 will go through. And today I wanted to share 2 of them. So sensitivity to order and sensitivity to 5 senses. I can have the next slide, thanks. Ooh, thank you. So what is a sensitive period? So we've kind of talked about what Montessori is in a nutshell. I have a long story, but if you want to hear a long story, join us for the course. And what sensitive periods are in a nutshell is that these are periods of time where children are intensely craving to master this particular skill or to explore a particular topic. So for example, the sensitivity to language, and it happens right around the time when children are born. And so if you're a family that's bilingual or trilingual and you want to introduce languages, this is a time where it's like peak season where we should be exposing them to these languages that we want to have them be fluent in, for example. So what happens when we ignore the sensitive periods? A lot of us just go through, the ages with our children, and we try our best. When they like something, we respond to it, and it's perfectly wonderful, and we have this like nice, beautiful dance with them, right? But sometimes what they're trying to tell us is actually something that's deeper, and the sensitive periods, understanding the sensitive periods, helps us figure that out. And ignoring the sensitive periods could potentially lead to slower development of these particular skills. And I want to just caveat that it doesn't mean that they will not develop the skills. It just means that it could be a little bit slower because we miss the peak season. And that's fine, because I do have some parents that freak out and go, oh no, I attended your course when my child is 3 and I've missed this like 0 to 3 portion. Perfectly fine. They will eventually pick up those skills. It's just that it could be slightly slower because it wasn't introduced during that peak time where they were really keen to learn it, a sensitive period. And it can also cause them great frustration because sensitive periods are guided a lot by the body. It's biological. And so when they don't get that satisfaction, they get irritable. They go into the room and they want to do something, and they're doing everything, like making a mess, but then they're not really getting satisfied. And so they're just being frustrated, or the tantrums are just a little bit bigger than what they could be. So understanding the sensitive period also helps us respond a little bit more suitable to what they're actually looking for. And all children go through it. It varies in terms of time and intensity. So what Montessori would do is, if you do a quick Google of it, she provides a very large age range of when these sensitive periods could happen for your child. And it's just good to know at the back of your head. So we have like a chart printed on our fridge, and we just kind of stick it there just to highlight when the sensitive periods are meant to happen. But I wouldn't take it and go, oh, this is not happening now when he hits exactly like 18 months, and then to worry, because it's child-led, right? And if it's biological, then you can trust in the child's body that these sensory periods will come. Sometimes they just might be a little less intense. So it's also our job as the facilitators in our child's environment to look out for them. So let's talk a bit about specifics. I can jump to the next slide, thank you. So I wanted to cover sensitivity to order first. So I'm pretty sure everyone's very familiar with having a bedtime routine for your children. I won't get you to raise your hands because most of you don't have your cameras on. It's totally fine. But I'm going to imagine you're nodding along with me and going, yes, that bedtime routine, everybody says, set the 7:30 time slot, play the music, read the book, have that maybe a warm wipe down, and then into jammies and into bed. So these routines are a direct response to sensitivity to order. And children are very sensitive to routine and having things a certain way, because that's how they understand the world. So they don't understand time. They don't have a clock to tell them you're meant to be hungry at 12 or you're meant to be hungry at 6:30. What they do to kind of give them an indication of how the world is supposed to work is that after activity A comes activity B, comes activity C, and they do it every day, more or less the same time, same type of activity, and then they understand it, because then they're able to expect it. And being able to expect some things allows you to let your guard down. Because imagine if you go to work and every day your boss just changes what you're meant to do, changes your portfolio. Like you're thinking, I've got these to-do lists, I'm going to do it. And then he comes in and goes, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to do this whole other list. And it can be so disconcerting. It can be so stressful for the body because you're constantly in fight or flight. Whereas if you have a routine, you kind of know what you're going to do. You set things up, you've got a list. And then you can almost let your guard down a little bit because you know what's coming. And that's what routine does for young children, especially babies when they're born, especially much younger children, also because they're unable to articulate that they're not comfortable with certain things. And so the routine allows them to almost mentally and physically prepare themselves. And different children react to changes in their routine in a different way. And how some of that looks like is, for example, a change in a routine could be skipping a nap. So some children obviously get really hyper. Some children go into really, they kind of step back, they become more quiet. Some children get tantrums, right? Or some just, when they miss their nap, like later on it's going to be really hard to put them to sleep because they're going to be wired. So all different children react differently. And I can bet my bottom dollar that all of you are the experts in what this looks like. And you realize that with every child, it's different. Other disruptions to their sensitivity to order could be they're used to putting their toy in a certain place. They're used to finding their Lego in this box and it's not there. And then they get really frustrated. And for us, it's like, what's the big deal? Like, it's just in the other box. It's okay. You put them there yesterday. But then they don't understand that. To them, it's like, it's not where it's supposed to be. For other children, sensitivity to routine means that they just like very familiar places. So a lot of very young children don't do too well in foreign environments because it's a disruption to their routine. They're not used to the space. They don't know how to make sense of it. As adults, we go into a space, we can really quickly understand the dynamic of the room. That's where the couch is, that's where the dining table is. You can kind of figure out what you're going to do in a room. You have a map. For children, it takes time to develop that map. And until they get a bit older and become comfortable with developing these mind maps faster, it's always going to be a new jarring experience for them. And that is a disruption to their routine. So what can we do? First things first, have things that are familiar to them. So if you're going on a road trip, have things that are familiar to them with you. So I know like a lot of like little children either have like a safety blankie or they have a favorite stuffed toy and we take that along with us. Sometimes you were the safety blankie, sometimes you were the safety net. And if you're not around, then having your t-shirt or your blanket or something that smells like you is really helpful. Sensitivity to routine also, what you could also do is for slightly older children, tell them when the routine is going to be disrupted. So for example, Des, I hope you don't mind, just now when Luca realized that he wasn't having mommy put him to sleep tonight, he was very cross. And Des tried to explain to him, sometimes it doesn't work out as good as we want it to. And it's not because we failed and we didn't do a good job. It's just because sometimes they're just so tired that whatever we're saying is not going in. So some children might need longer time. Like my son, if something is going to happen tomorrow, I have to tell him the day before. Tell him the night before that this is going to change tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'll tell him again, hey, you're not going to school today. You're going to your grandma's house. And this is what we'll do at your grandma's house. What do you want? Do you want to bring anything with you? What would you like to do at your grandma's house? And so this kind of preps him because he doesn't react too well when things suddenly change and he gets too excited and we actually take really long to get out of the house. And of course, we know we run a tight ship and we need to get everyone out. So prepping them the day before is a way of responding to that need for a routine. It's also being very considerate to your child's feelings because like us, we don't like to be told something last minute if the person knew about it beforehand. Other things that we can do for young children, of course, is when they go for a play date in a foreign place, they're not used to the people, that's a disruption to their sensitivity to order, to routine. We can just be that safety net and have them with us. So we can tell, instead of, I've seen some play dates facilitated by like helpers, because we have helpers in Singapore, and the helpers, they've had a long day. They want to sit down and have a chat, but then the kids are speaking to them, and then the helper's like, just go, these are friends that you see every week. Just go, and then they get too enthusiastic and try to brush off that the child is feeling very uncomfortable. And actually, it makes it even harder for the child to warm up because they're like, why are you pushing me away when I'm telling you that I need a safety blanket and when I want to be near you? And so actually telling them, that's okay, you can sit with me until you feel like joining in, tells them that it's not a big deal. We're not making a big fuss of this. When you are ready, you can go. And when they go, sometimes I also observe that it's helpful not to make a big deal out of it, because sometimes they get self-conscious. They're like, oh wait, I'm going, and then I'm gonna get back into that that mood again where I don't want to be involved. And so usually I'd be like, let's just observe what happens. Like, we'll just keep quiet, watch the child go off, and then see what he does with his friends. And more often than not, that's actually a much smoother way of helping them transition out from being next to you and to join or to be nearer to the play group. And some children will be right in the action of that play group, and some children will be at the side of the action, and that's totally fine. And then so this is all just ways a sensitivity disorder could manifest, and you could see that happening just in day-to-day instances with a young child. Over to you, Des.
So yes, exactly. That is when we spoke about that at the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, it's true. There's so many ways, right, that we can do, and communication is just a huge part of that. So for me, for the ones that are not so familiar with essential oils yet, just a little bit of a disclaimer, because when I speak about essential oils, I always just want to put it out there that this is all for sharing and educational purposes only. We do use a specific grade of essential oils, which makes a huge difference, right? So, but if you have any medical conditions or anything, I am a clinical aromatherapist, but I'm not a doctor. So do consult with your physician, or we'll have a separate chat about that. Just always have to put that out there. So I just mentioned that it's really important to that when I'm now going on to speak about essential oils, that we are talking about the highest quality of essential oils, which is the completely pure, unadulterated oil, because there's just so many grades out there, starting from a really cheap synthetic lab made, man-made scent that has nothing to do with the real thing, which we find in like the toilet cleaner scent, the sprays we put around our house, or like the air fresheners, or dish soap, laundry soap, anything that has like a lemony or pine smell, that's all synthetic, right? And that's why it's also very cheaply available. And we are faced with that every day from everywhere, like hand soap in public bathrooms, things like that. Then we go into a bit of a higher quality one, which is the fragrance grade, which we know as perfume, but that is still often adulterated. There are solvents in there, alcohol, to make it last longer, to have companies make profit, to have them all smell the same, because of brand integrity and all of that. So that's the perfume grade. Then there is the natural grade of essential oils, which is what most people are familiar with, because these are the ones that you then buy in your health food stores, or in like, even for like people use them for cooking or baking or something. They're all natural, and that's fine. They can still have chemicals, but they are usually also like natural, right? Nothing harmful added. That's why you can also consume them, like bubble gum or flavored drinks. Those are all natural grade essential oils in there. However, they do nothing for you on the clinical level or therapeutic level, or touch your emotions or anything, which we will speak about. That's why I want to just cover that base when I speak to people often and say, oh yeah, try this and this oil, and they're, oh yeah, I have that. I have a lavender oil at home, and then they use it and it does nothing for them. But it's no wonder, because it might smell like lavender, but it has nothing to do with like the purity of the oil that can have sort of a clinical effect on you, right? The ones we're going to talk about today in the sections are have a C2Seal quality, meaning they are completely pure, unadulterated. And I always say it's like the plant directly squeezed into the bottle, or distilled for the most part, which means there is nothing in there but the absolute purest plant juices that can have that effect, right? So just to kind of cover that a little bit. Now, when we have these oils, the first question people ask me, yeah, but can I use them for my kids? Is that even safe? And my clear answer to that is absolutely yes. It's nature. It's nature in a bottle. I deem that safer than giving medication, even if it's over-the-counter medication, even if it's like anything like I specify in specialize in babies and kids and pregnancy. I'm currently 8 months pregnant, so like I use oil so much, and people are often worried, but they don't hesitate to give like medication or put like an over-the-counter bug repellent on them where they don't even know what is in those ingredients, or the sunscreen or anything, right? Or cleaning things at home where you don't know what harmful ingredients are in there, but parents do not hesitate to do that. But then you have something that's completely natural and people are like, I am not sure if I should be using that, but it's nature. It's like the purest thing you can do for your child. What is important when you use essential oils on children for different ages is that you do dilute them, because either like their respiratory system is not as developed as those of an adult. Their skin is very sensitive still, right? Like the baby skin. So just this is a little bit of a guideline. I like to eyeball things. I by no means do like 1 drop to this and this many milliliters. I don't have time. I eyeball everything, but this is a nice kind of visual guide. So from 0 to 1, you want to make sure you have more carrier oil, which can be even like a lotion, a natural lotion, or some kind of vegetable oil, jojoba oil, coconut oil, something like that. And just a little bit of essential oil will go a long way. As they're getting older, you can increase the ratio from carrier oil to essential oil until in our world, we say, okay, kids as of 12 years old can do sort of the same ratio as we would use as an adult, right? So that is, it is safe. It is absolutely recommended, and it is wonderful if you give your children the exposure to essential oils as opposed to synthetic things, because it allows their little bodies to develop naturally and with their own force, and not intervened with something that is not natural. So I wanted to show you a little video about the power of scent. This sound will trigger a lot of moms. Children don't lie, right? Children do not make up things. This is the true power of scent. What the mom did is just put a drop of lavender on her finger and held it to her crying infant's nose, and the infant completely calmed down and went back to sleep. It's just so powerful. Even for children, the power of scent and inhalation will immediately be able to travel up to the brain, reach the limbic system of the brain, which is our emotional center. It can affect their mood. It can affect their behaviors. It's absolutely powerful. So when we're now talking about the sensitivity to order, and the sensitivity to having certain routines, the power of scent can be absolutely useful to complement with everything that Victoria said before, right? All of the examples that she has given. And you can then use essential oils to support that, to complement that. So for example, as she mentioned, Kids need their routine. Often you as the parent, you as the mom or the dad are going to be their safety net. They need you around. They do not want to separate. That's why you have this whole separation anxiety. However, if you can use some scents that if they're used to these scents from home, you can always like have a drop of that on a t-shirt or on a scarf. Leave that with the child and whoever is taking care of the child, or if it's, you know, at home with like grandparents or something and you're going away, have that familiar scent, and that will immediately provide this kind of safety net for them as well. Familiarity. Just remember yourself, if you are walking along the street and all of a sudden you smell a certain like type of food or something, or a type of flower, and you're like, oh my God, this totally reminds me of the vacation we went on a couple of years ago, and it transports you to this place of like either bliss or a good memory. It can also be a bad memory, but usually like a good memory. And that is exactly what's going to happen to the child. What you can also do is, for example, for sleep, right? When Victoria spoke about the bedtime routine, that's something you can implement as well, either as in form of a diffuser, sort of setting the tone in the home, or in as a bedtime routine in the bedroom, or even putting a drop on their stuffed animal or onto like the pillow or something, to make sure it's not like too strong, right? But it's something close to them, and that can completely put that child at ease. You just saw the video of what can happen with these scents. The diffuser is another good example of how you can just set the tone and the ambience at home for anything. If you have a very young child and you need them to calm down, I've just given a few examples on the side, but the list is exhaustive, right? But lavender works in very well. Stress Away, that's also my perfume, so that's something my son will be very familiar with, because like I always smell like Stress Away or Valor. And those are all really, really, really calming scents. And but then also, if you have an older child that maybe needs to sit down and concentrate and already do like little homework or crafts or something, there's things we can do for concentration. There's things we can do for like tantrum tamers. It's really, there's so much we can do. When you're traveling, again, Victoria mentioned, if you have the routine is broken, not broken, but something new is happening. Instead of going to school now, you know, like her son will go to his grandma's house, or you go on vacation and you're all of a sudden in a hotel room. It's a different routine. The order is their order is disrupted. You can bring these oils along and recreate that familiar space around them wherever you are. So that's how we would use the scents to support this certain sensitivity.
Thanks, Des. I was also going to say my personal favorite is Gentle Baby. So.
Yeah, I should put that on actually. Yeah.
Gentle. I have a quick anecdote, if you would indulge me. So I had the worst postnatal blues after I had my older son. And I had a yoga teacher, and she would put Gentle Baby at the end when we did Savasana for me, because she just realized how tense I was. And so up till now, whenever I smell it, it not only reminds me of like just being calm, but it reminds me of like kindness, because it was somebody who extended that to me when I needed it the most. So that's my little anecdote with Gentle Baby. It's right here.
For you.
I always have mine with me.
Perfect for stretch marks as well. You have a growing belly.
Oh yes, you did say that. Yeah, so thank you for staying with us so far. I wanted to cover the NIC sensitivity, cut sensitivity 5 senses. And the reason why I chose this one of the 11 sensitivities there are is that it explains a lot of the strange behavior, or behavior that I consider strange, when I had my first child. And I was like, why in the world are you doing this? So to take a step back, children learn through their complete 5 senses. In fact, from when they're born till they're about 5, their whole role with senses, that whole engagement, is about refining their 5 senses. So of course they know what it is to put stuff in their mouth. Of course, they know what it is to hear a song, but it's about refining that sense. So you start hearing pitch, you start hearing tone, you start smelling, you start making out that things are like the things you're smelling are specific. Oh, that's a croissant, that's a cookie, you know. They're just honing that sense. And it's no wonder that sensory play has become really popular in the last couple of years, because people are starting to realize that play isn't just play, like being able to engage the child, you know, on all their five senses is really crucial, because the more we engage them with their five senses, the more they will hone that skill. But more importantly, the more it forms these highways in their brains for brain development, for thinking, for cognitive development. So it's almost as if we're saying that all the sensory play and all the sensory input is the fundamental in order to build very strong cognitive highways for your child to then process much more complicated and complex things like their emotions, things like, you know, the things they're learning, you know, academically. And it all starts with something as simple as making sure that all their senses are very satisfied. So we all know what the five senses are, right? So I'm not going to go through them. I went through it once and then I forgot one of the senses and I was just sitting there scratching my head. So you all know what the five senses are. And of the five senses, the ones that we see the most that our children are engaging with is the sense of touch and the sense of taste. And that's really because those are the ones that they have to proactively do something about, and therefore we see it most often. So rest assured that the other three senses are still being engaged. It's just that I don't really have to do anything in order to hear a sound. I don't really have to do anything in order to smell. You know, it's quite passive. Whereas the sense of taste, I would have to pick something up and put it in my mouth. Whereas, you know, your sense of touch, I would be touching everything. So I won't ask you to put your hands up if you've noticed this, but I'm pretty sure anybody who has a young child has seen your child put everything in their mouth. You've seen them touch everything. Like when they go out, they just randomly want to touch everything. And especially during COVID now, you're just like freaking out, like stop touching everything. But that's what they're programmed to do. And it's part of this sensitivity to their five senses. They really are touching all these things to form a picture of what these things are in their environment. And so what can we do about it? Apart from the amazing tips that Desiree will share with you later, because I also applied them in my home. One of the things is really, like I said, to have a lot of sensory play at home. So things like, if you're not a fan of wasting food, and I'm personally not, things like getting kinetic sand. You know, that's something that, you know, we get a really big blow up bathtub, put the kids in there, kinetic sand, and after we're done, we just dust everybody off and straight into the shower. We even play with the sand. We even set the whole bathtub up in the bathroom so that the walk from bathtub to shower is like literally a step. It's just turn. So that's what we do, because our space isn't big enough. We don't have a yard. So if you're stuck in a tiny apartment like us, this is something that you can do. Just having them play with water. Having water, having ice cubes. So what we do sometimes is we take their favorite dinosaurs, we freeze them in little ice cube, like the little tins, and then we just release them in the bathtub, and the kids just have fun, you know, kind of trying to get them out of the ice and playing with watching it melt and the different sensations. So that's something also I find quite clean and mess free, because you could just hose everything down. Textured paint. So some parents are happy to make textured paint out of like corn flour and water and just food coloring, so that's also safe. I found that I've recently started liking to make Play-Doh in our house, and we use the essential oils to scent the Play-Doh as well, because the kids obviously get their hands all up in there and they touch everything. So that's something that we do as well. So all these things I feel that they're accessible enough that you could make at home. You can also buy them. But that it provides, you know, a range of whether you feel like going the extra mile of making them at home, or if you're happy to get them from the toy store. Play-Doh is fantastic. He's an entertaining for hours, and it builds all their hand muscles as well. And so this is how we engage our five senses. Having them involved in the kitchen has been phenomenal for us. So, you know, if you eat a lot of rice, washing rice is a very sensory experience. If you eat a lot of black fungus. So Chinese, we put a lot of black fungus in our food when we steam fish or when we, you know, cook soup. And watching it just grow from like yay big to like yay big is really fun for them. So these are all ways that we kind of get the kids involved in the kitchen and also have that sensory element to it. And it's all about, like I mentioned earlier, you know, making sure that they're satisfied, that their senses are all satisfied. So going out to the park and seeing new things, helping them observe new things. These are all ways of refining those five senses and building those really crucial highways for like, you know, the next level of like academic learning. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about for the five senses. I'm going to pass it over to Des.
Thank you. Yeah, the five senses are amazing, and like I love the highway to the brain kind of thing, because what we often as parents, I know a lot of parents that do that, or it's like, no, don't touch that, don't put that in your mouth, don't, like we stop them with so many things. And yeah, like you said, especially now with COVID, like before we go in a supermarket, I tell like Luca, I was like, do not touch anything, keep your mask on, do not touch anything. And for them, that's so hard because it's like the natural thing to do, right? They want to touch absolutely everything. So I know we're in a very special situation at the moment, but generally, I think as well, it's really, really important then for us to create that environment where we allow these things to happen, or especially when we're outside. So now we try to spend a lot of time outside. A lot of our play dates now are outside, right? In the park or on a playground or something. And we have to, as parents, also know when we need to draw the line. Sometimes we're too strict with them, and we are so like, don't do this, but we need them, and they will put sand in their mouth. They will want to try that texture, right? To explore the sense. They want to touch different things. That's just what they need, like Victoria said, for their development, for their brain to be able to develop to the next level. It's necessary. So we should let them. In Germany, we also have a saying that we say, dirt cleans the stomach. So you know, having them consume a little bit of dirt, it just builds their immune system. It also makes them stronger. So this is what, personally, it's so hard to talk about this nowadays, because now we're entering this super high sterile life where we're using sanitizers like 10 times a day minimum, more actually, 10 times in like an hour almost, right? Like everything. And unfortunately, that's a little bit what our kids are growing up with. So it's for us also to set these boundaries. No, go play, put grass in your mouth, go ahead, or like whatever our line is, but to give them a little bit of freedom. What we also then need to be aware of, though, that exact phase that Victoria mentioned with putting things in the mouth at home, is that we make sure we just remove the toxins that are and lingering in our home, right? We often pay so much attention to the quality of food that we buy, the organic, like we spend extra money to make sure like their food is good, but then we go out and buy conventional sprays and clean our house and don't even know, because it's not so noticeable in a way. But then they first of all inhale all of that, and then they chew their toys and have that residue. Even if you wash the dishes or dishwasher tablets, there will be residue on the plates no matter how well you rinse them, and they will lick it. You lick the fork, obviously, it is going to go into your system. So that's one thing of creating just a toxic free environment. Then sanitizers and disinfectants, huge topic now as well. It's really important, and I've done a whole class sort of on like different levels of alcohol, right? Like here, everywhere, alcohol. And I always tell everyone, no, we have our own, stop it, because what we're doing is we're killing off everything on our hands. All the bacteria goes off. But we need bacteria. We're made out of bacteria. There's good bacteria that we actually need, but that it's killing it all off. But if we use like natural sanitizers, right, we are getting rid of the bad, but we're keeping the good, and it keeps like the equilibrium as well for our immunity. And especially for our kids who are still building their immunity, they're still growing, it's really important that we kind of have these tools available. Obviously, I am an advocate of Young Living because I've done my research and I stand behind them. But if you can, just make sure whatever you use, make sure it is natural and doesn't have any harmful additives in there. When we're on the go, then of course we do want to be on the go. When we're outside, there's things like I always have a little spray bottle with me where I spray down the high chair, where I spray down the table, especially now, right? But again, they're non-harmful things. I have a little spray mix where I spray down toys, and then he can put it back into his mouth and it's totally safe. I'm not worried at all. I have like classes and separate like classes where we can go through how to make your own like all-purpose spray that are completely toxic free, something to use at home. Again, I have like one which I use, which is mainly for Lucas toys, right, where it's like a very high diluted cleaning like household cleaner that I use, and I spray absolutely everything and know it's safe. I even gave it to his kindergarten now. That's what he uses. He uses a specific one. I make it at home, like a specific recipe to clean his hands. I do not want him to use what they use in school. I just do not. I even give them my natural hand soap. I'm like that now, but it's just excessive nowadays. So I want to be careful. A lot of questions, and actually Victoria asked me this question before because a lot of you guys are living in tropical countries, so we're faced with a lot of mold as well, especially when kids are chewing on things and we don't always see that. Then it goes back into the toy basket and it's wet and like mold starts to form as well. What you can do if you have like, if you are making your cleaners, you can just add a little bit of tea tree to them, because that is like an antifungal oil, and that really helps with moldy areas, also cleaning bathrooms and stuff, but especially for these toys. Stuffed animals, mine now likes to take his toy dinosaur out. When we come home, spray it down, with that and give it back to him and it's fine. So yeah, many things we can do to kind of encourage those 5 senses. However, yeah, not take anything away, but keep them safe at the same time. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, we've, excuse me, frog in my mouth. I hope that what we've shared was helpful. I mean, I always like to talk to Des because she reminds me of all the things that I could do with one bottle of cleaner. And I remember saying to her when I first started, I'm like, the bottle of cleaner is, like price wise, it's not the cheapest thing. And then she sends me this list, and it's just of how many things I can do with the Thieves cleaner. And I'm like, okay, so then that was a convert. And now I just can't look back.
It's the only thing you need. You don't need anything else at home, right? Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about our course, the Essential Parents course. So I hope that what we've shared today was helpful, and it was also a preview into what we'll be sharing more and going into deeper, talk about deeper in our course. So if you have any feedback, obviously you also know how to contact us. You've seen our Instagram handles, and I think we also have the handles at the end. If you need it, we can type it in the chat box. Please feel free to share what you think about it, and if you're curious about anything else, also feel free to share there. But really about the course, we talk about the sensitive periods, but what else are we going to be talking about? I mean, that's what you want to know. So first, you want to talk about the parent. Something that I realized when I started reading about children, when I started reading books about, looking after my child, or just the French way of parenting, or the whatever other way of parenting, I realized that a lot of them focused on what we had to do for the children. And not a lot of them talked about me. Not a lot of them recognized that I had just given birth and I was feeling overwhelmed and I'm not sure what I was doing. I had all this, baggage and previous learnings from my family, from pressure from Instagram, pressure from, just social media. And not a lot of the literature out there was preparing me to be that parent for my child. And so we'll be able to cover that in our course. along with a lot of obviously really helpful tips from Des in terms of how to get you in the right headspace, what to do when you get triggered, all really useful things that just, almost change you from responding on the fly to Jen actually having a very calculated response, that something that you're very comfortable and happy that that's what you did. And then we talk about the sensitive periods. Obviously, there are 11, like I said, we've covered 2 today, but of the there are 6 major sensitive periods, and we'll be talking about these 6 major sensitive periods because these will form, like I said, almost like the blueprint in understanding what happens between 0 to 6 in your child's brain. And of course, my personal favorite, understanding and winning at tantrums. So the number of times I hear parents telling me my child is turning 2, terrible 2s are coming up. My child's not 2 yet. Why are they acting like they're a teenager already? Or 3-nagers, just so many terms out there, right? So what exactly are tantrums? Why do they happen? How can we actually use them to our advantage? There's so many ways that tantrums are so helpful and essential to a child's development, but not just theirs, also ours as parents. And we talk about how we can actually use it and turn it around into something that will change how that connection will be like between you and your child, but also help them become the kind of person that they are looking for your guidance to become. And so we talk a lot about that. And then Des will come in with all these really helpful tips again on providing that right environment, arming your child with their own tools to help them sort through their own tantrum. I mean, how amazing is that? I find that amazing. Like just knowing that we could be empowering them to deal with this really crazy, sometimes aggressive, sometimes beautiful world makes me feel really good, because there's also only so much that I could watch out for them for before they leave the nest and they grow up and do their own thing. And so these are the things that we want to talk about. And although we also say 0 to 6, these techniques are helpful for, as long as you have that relationship with your child, because you're prepared as a parent, you're rethinking how you're approaching them, you're rethinking how you're imagining this child and your support to them. It's going to extend into all aspects of your life forever. And so this is something that we start now, but I feel like the payoff would just be, for the rest of our lives. And yeah, this is something that we wanted to share with you about our Essential Parents course. And hopefully if any of you are keen, please write to us, let us know that you're keen. Yes, I feel like we have a present. Don't we have a present for them for just spending this hour with us? And
yes. Absolutely. So we put the link there. We're going to split it up into the first time we're going to run this, because we're going to do this rolling it out for the first time. It's going to be on 3 consecutive Saturdays, and we're going to be each day will be 1.5 hours long into all the topics that Victoria just listed. And but we are going to record them, so you can also watch it at your own time. You can be there live with us. So it starts next Saturday on the 23rd, and then on the 30th, and then on the 6th of November. So those 3 Saturdays. And we'll be there live, but if you can also catch the recordings that will be up then within 24 hours. Because it's the first time, we would love feedback, because then we can go back and add things if needed or change things if needed. And as a thank you as well, we're going to launch this with a sort of VIP code, which gives you almost half at half of the price, and you have lifetime access. So what that also means, you will always have access to us, because you can ask questions and we'll be in there and answering them in the comments on that platform. But also when we update the course or add things or put in bonuses, you will have lifetime access, and you will have always the updates to everything that we put in there as well. So please do check it out, share it with other moms. I think it's a great tool or a present. I wish I had that myself. I am expecting my second one, so I'm personally also really excited to expand my knowledge through what we're doing here, to be able to maybe also learn from things that didn't go too well with the first kid. I mean, it's a learning curve. Every kid is different, but I think it's good, like we said, in all stages. So yes, please do join us. if you have, most of you here are from our oily community. There's one or two names I have that are quite new to me. So if you do want to be connected with us through sort of the oil community as well, we do have that special link that you can sign up to become a member and have special member prices. We do guide with these oils for everything, right? Emotions, for parents, for like moms. We do absolutely all types of topics, lots of beauty topics as well. So you'll be completely connected with us through there. And then these are our Instagram handles as well to follow along. And Victoria, do tell them, especially all the Singapore-based families in here, your the course that you do for the helpers as well.
Oh yeah, thanks for the shout out. So obviously when I first started the course, it was really to help parents, because Montessori education was something that I think people were keen on, but might not have access to. And then I started getting a lot of requests from parents to also run it for helpers, because in Singapore, helpers are a very big part of our family. And it just makes sense to have the consistent environment from the caregivers in the space, you know? So we also run a special workshop for parents. It is complementary to what we run for, so I should say parents. We also have a workshop for helpers, and it's complementary to what we run for parents, because we want to make sure the messaging is consistent. It varies a little bit because I think the parents' objective and mindset will be quite different from the helpers' day-to-day challenges that they may face. And so we've also tailored it to make sure that it's really practical for both parents and helpers. And our helpers workshop also focuses on building that communication with their employers as well, because that is a key part. If your helper is helping you be the key observer in your child's environment, then they should also be able to communicate that with you in a way that, you know, you would be able to understand and you be able to respond to. And so that's what we do. We have a workshop coming up in November. I believe it is on November 6th, but I will get back to you. It will be posted on our Instagram page. We have so many classes running. We have a positive discipline one coming up in January as well.
Oh, I really need to know about that one too. Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that one too.
Yeah.
So if stay tuned, you know, we have so many classes coming up. Follow us on our Instagram. That's where you get the biggest and the fastest updates, because that's where we're most active.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us tonight.